than just business news, we're news for business people.
Good morning, you're watching All You Need to Know on Bloomberg Quint. I'm Darshan Mehta. Joining me on the show is Agam Vakil. Agam will speak about the FNOQs. I'll talk about the general trade setup. And the trade setup as of now looks decent. We closed at record highs yesterday. Again, the SGX Nifty is indicating a positive outlook that will happen. So a 17 point uptick 10,650 level is something that we are watching on the SGX Nifty. Now, as far as the ADRs are concerned, most of them ended with a positive bias. The best performer was Wipro. Wipro ended up almost 2%. What didn't do well was HDFC Bank and Dr. Reddy. So overall, decent cues coming in from the ADR markets also. As far as crude is concerned, crude gained as much as 0.5% on Monday. It's managing to hold on to the $68 barrel per mark. As far as the commodity space is concerned, it was a positive closing on base metals on the LME. Aluminium, which was the only one which ended down over 1%, so that traded with a negative bias. But apart from it, lead did well. Copper and nickel were rather flat in trade. The other base metals like zinc was up 1%. Tin as well as COMEX copper is also trading with a positive bias. As far as China is concerned, positive opening by commodities in China. You have steel, which is up 4%, aluminium, which is down, but copper, rubber, all of them are trading with a positive bias in currently trading. Gold opens muted in opening trade currently. As far as the fund flows are also concerned, FIs were net buyers to the tune of almost 690 crores. DIs were net sellers. They sold in almost 206 crores. So overall, if you're looking at the market as such, FIs have been net buyers to the tune of 2,000 crores in the cash market this month, while DIs have been net sellers to the tune of almost 1,200 crores in the cash market. Now, the Nifty ended positive. It ended with a positive bias for the fifth day and closed at record highs. Apart from it, if you're looking at it, the broader markets over the past few days have actually continued to outperform the Nifty. So there is enough traction that is happening. And FMCG as well as pharma were the counters which did extremely well in trade. How did the market move? The contribution, Nifty was up almost 65 points. Infosys was up almost 12 points. L&T was up 7 points. HDFC was up another 7 points. What didn't do well was Bharti Airtel, HDFC Bank and ONGC, which contributed on the negative side. But Agam, what are the FNOQs indicating to us? More put writing at 10,600?
Absolutely, Darshan. That's exactly what we've seen. In fact, that was also the strike which saw most amount of activity yesterday. But let me start off with what we've seen in the futures market yesterday. Fresh longs building up. So no prices for guessing there. We've seen 4% increase in open interest, and the picture is very much the same when it comes to the Nifty Bank futures too. So we have seen about near 18% increase in open interest when it comes to the Nifty Bank futures. The volatility index, however, has also moved up, up nearly 5%, now at around 13.7. And naturally, considering the Nifty's moved up, we've seen the put-call ratio also edge up higher to around 1.63 as against 1.58. That said, as Darshan was mentioning earlier, in terms of changes in open interest for a lot of these strikes, we have seen the most amount of activity in the 10,600 put, which has seen most amount of writing and a lot more writing coming along the 10,500 put as well, which means that there is a little more support building around those levels. That said, in terms of stocks, there are a couple of stocks which moved into the band, so Reliance hard moving in. On the other hand, Reliance Power moves out of the band. A couple of stocks that I'm watching out for with respect to fresh longs building in. So you have the likes of RBL Bank adding nearly 36% in open interest, and Mindtree also adding 26% in open interest. So a lot of stocks out there to keep an eye on. But more importantly, whether or not the Nifty can hold on to 10,600 mark. Considering the fact that we've seen all these moves in our own markets, there are of course some other global cues which will also be in focus. So we have the South and North Korea holding talks for the first official face-to-face talks today after 2 years, with hopes that the discussion could ease tension in the peninsula. And all parties involved have been on the edge on account of Pyongyang's nuclear weapons program. And Bloomberg's Stephen Engel, who is near Panmunjom, wraps up all these details in this report. Listen in.
We just had what looked like a couple of Apache helicopters fly over. This is the DMZ behind me, the demilitarized zone, and this is the reunification bridge that heads into the DMZ and the JSA, the Joint Security Area that is, of course, demilitarized and jointly controlled by North and South. And within that is the Peace Village of Panmunjom, where they're going to have at the Peace House these talks that I've been told have or should have started right at the top of the hour, the first direct face-to-face discussions since December of 2015. So it's quite significant. The scene here is this way. If you go through here, that takes you across the bridge into the DMZ. This way over here are the tour groups which have been coming by consistently from Seoul for tourists to see the DMZ. No such luck to get into Panmunjom right now. That is highly sensitive, as they're going to be discussing a range of issues to propel peace, of course, on the Korean Peninsula. It's an open-ended agenda. At the top, though, is the possibility, at least an olive branch or an opening for the South to allow the North to compete in the Olympics as one Korean team. It's not set in stone. We don't know if that will happen, but at least that is a way to get the two sides to talk and have this openness period in the month running up to the Olympics, which start in Pyeongchang to the southeast of here 1 month from today. Basically, the South Koreans say they're going to discuss issues related to improving inter-Korean relations. That is pretty open-ended. One other possibility is the possible resumption of the shuttered Gaeson industrial complex, which was closed more than a year ago due to the tensions over the missile tests. Of course, the North Koreans have tested a number of missiles. 23 different missiles have been fired recently, over 16 different missile tests. They've, of course, had 6 nuclear tests, including the most recent one in September, believed to be, or possibly, an H-bomb. And also, of course, there were those rumors that it also caused a collapse. Again, the Hwasong-15 missile program and the successes that have been lauded by Kim Jong-un, perhaps giving the North Koreans a bit of confidence to come to the bargaining table with a few more bargaining chips. At the same time, the South Koreans are wary as well. They do not, and the United States do not want the North Koreans to try to drive a wedge between the South Koreans and the Americans.
Stock of the day is Pennar Engineered building system. Good set of bull deal. If you see, there are multiple bull deals for this counter. Around 4.5% stake has been exchanged for a sum of around good 15-16 odd crore. If you look at the first fund, which is the Crest Capital and Investment, which is bought in 0.8% stake in the company for a sum of around 3 odd crore. Ganesh Trading and Investment has also bought in 0.9%, less than 1% stake in the counter for 3.5 crore. And you have Cypher Peacock Indian Fund, which is bought in 2.6% stake in this company for a sum of around 9.9 odd crore. The company is expected to meet multiple fund houses like DSP BlackRock, Maybank, Aditya Birla Sun Life, and Kotak Mutual Fund. So you might just see some reaction coming in on this counter on account of the multiple bull deals also, and for that matter, the number of investors that the company is expected to meet today. In terms of shareholding pattern, you would see promoter holds 63.4% stake as compared to 37% stake which is held by public. Now, promoter holding has been significantly going up to 63.46% from 62.6% that we saw in the July odd quarter. In terms of the financials of the company, we are looking at sales and profit both. If you look at a CAGR for a 5-year period, you would see a good growth coming in the range of 15 to 18 odd % for this counter. To give you a rundown of what the company is, it's a company which is used to design, manufacture, supply pre-engineered building system and has a market capitalization of less than 500 crore. With that, let's toss it over to Saloni for rupee and bond market update.
Thanks for that, Nikki. So the rupee yesterday retreated from its near 3-year high and ended 14 paise lower at 63.51 levels against the dollar. Now this moves comes on the back of fresh dollar demand by importers amid concerns over the sluggish outlook for economic growth domestically. Now strong dollar overseas along with rising crude oil prices largely weighed on the rupee. On the global front, Asian currencies were trading lower with Singapore dollar and Philippine peso losing the most. Well, the dollar index rose to more than a week's high and jumped above the crucial 92 mark, helped by a pullback in the euro as investors made some profit booking in the common currency after the recent rally in the euro. Well, it broke below the 1.2 level against the dollar as political risk returns to eurozone with anxiety over Italy's March elections coming in next 2 months. Now coming back home, dollar rupee is trading at 63.46 levels against the dollar in the non-deliverable forward market, which indicates a flat to positive opening for Indian rupee in today's trade. Moving on to bond market, sovereign bonds declined yesterday and the yields ended 5 basis points higher at 7.34%. Also, Mr. Ajay Manglunia, the head of fixed income at Edelweiss, believes that markets will remain volatile till federal budget, that is till 1st Feb 2018, which will clarify government's stance on fiscal deficit for the next financial year. And lastly, global funds increased their rupee debt holdings yesterday. They infused close to 800 crore according to NSDL data. Well, that said, let's shift focus to commodities market. Good morning, Jayesh. How are oil prices trading in today?
Morning, Saloni. So oil prices have actually extended last week's gains. So Brent is trading comfortably above the 68 per barrel mark and WTI above the 62 per dollar per barrel mark. Now, the gain has come largely due to some political concerns arising out of Iran, and also that WTI has rallied on account of the US oil rig count, which has come in at the lowest level since the month of November. So that's the positive coming in for oil prices. Moving on to the base metal space, the index on LME closed largely flat. However, there was big moves among individual base metals. Aluminium, which was the sole loser, lost about more than 1% as annual reweighting of the commodity funds begins, and zinc was up 1% following jump in orders to withdraw the metal from the LME on Friday. Lead, which was the top performer, gained as much as 2.5%, and copper, nickel and tin also advanced on the London Metal Exchange. Now, if you look at the Shanghai Futures Exchange, most of these base metals are trading with a positive bias, except for aluminium, which is down about 1.5%. Moving on to the precious metal space, we are seeing some bit of softness creep into the gold prices, which have slipped below the 1320 mark on account of the US jobs data, which came in lower than expected on Friday, and also that there is some underlying strength that the dollar index is showing, which has gained most in 3 weeks, while the euro has also stumbled down.
Amongst the stocks that you should watch out for today is NMDC, where the government has said they will divest 1.5% stake in the company to raise about 750 crores. Now, the OFS price, the floor price, has been set at 153.5 per share, which is about close to 5% discount to yesterday's closing price. So we might see some pressure on that name. That apart, we're also looking at Max India. Now, this is on the back of an ET report which says that Radiant is looking to buy Max Healthcare stake. Now, according to that ET report, stocks are at an early stage for Life Healthcare's 9.7% stake in Max Healthcare. So keep an eye out for that name. We're also tracking Vedanta and Electro Steels, again on the back of an ET report which says that Vedanta is leading the race with the highest offer for Electro Steels. Now, Vedanta's bid is said to be worth 4,500 crores ahead of Tata Group's 3,500 crores. So watch out for those stocks. That apart, what we're tracking today is also Tata Motors, where the company has reported numbers for JLR. Now, JLR sales for the month of December grew 0.6%, while for the full year sales were up 6.5% at a record 6.21 lakh units. But having said that, the management did warn with respect to its home market, that is UK, saying that they're facing tough conditions there, and which is also on account of the weak consumer confidence and diesel tax. So let's see how that stock reacts. That apart, we're tracking Aarti Drugs, which has approved a buyback of up to 2.75 lakh shares at the price of 875 5 per share. We're also tracking Satluj Textiles, a smaller name, but the company said they will set up a polyester staple fiber manufacturing unit in Jammu and Kashmir. They've also deferred plans to expand the Baddi facilities, and they've cited uncertain market conditions as the reason for the same. So do keep an eye out on that name. And lastly, Sobha Limited, on the back of bulk deals where Adavi Investment Holdings has sold 4.3% stake yesterday, and they've completely exited the stake. So those are some of the stocks that you need to track and trade today.
So this new petition which has been filed in the Supreme Court comes in the background of the Apex Court's judgment last year in the right to privacy matter, where they held by a majority of 9-0 that privacy is a fundamental right. And in that judgment also, Justice Chandrachud's judgment refers to the fact that an individual's sexual choices are also covered under right to privacy. And today what this petition again says is that the Supreme Court's earlier judgment in the Kaushal case, where they upheld the constitutionality of Section 377, which criminalizes homosexuality and certain other acts between consenting heterosexual adults as well. The Supreme Court has been asked by the petitioners that after the right to privacy judgment, that Kaushal judgment has been overturned, and that also the Section 377 should be described as unconstitutional and struck down. Now remember, in the Kaushal's case, the review petition is already pending with the Apex Court. This new petition was also filed. What the Supreme Court has done today is that it has issued notice to the central government, which in effect is asking the central government for their stance, and the Apex Court has agreed to hear this matter, which will now be referred to a constitution bench, which will decide on the constitutionality of Section 377.
Among other stocks to watch, first up we have Sobha, which was down 1%. Started the day with a gain of about 10%, but gave up all the gains on the back of a bulk deal as well. So delivery selling in excess of 270 crores. The delivery volume was up more than 260% at about 45 lakh shares as compared to its 5-day average, and the total volume surged more than 300% at about 83 lakh shares as compared to its 5-day average. Federal Bank, the other stock to watch out for, it gained as much as 3% and saw delivery buying in excess of 150 crores. The delivery volume almost doubled at nearly 1.3 crore shares as compared to its 5-day average, and the total volume more than doubled at about 2 crore shares as compared to its 5-day average. Last and final stock to watch out for, Idea Cellular. It was down nearly 6% in trade and saw delivery selling in excess of 150 crores. The delivery volume was up 72% at about 1.4 crore shares as compared to its 5-day average, and the total volume surged just about 15% at nearly 4 crore shares as compared to its 5-day average.
On the big brokerages, first we have is Macquarie and ICICI Lombard General Insurance. Now they have initiated coverage on the stock with an underperform rating and a target price of 565, which suggests a potential downside of 33%. Now according to the brokerage, the business of ICICI Lombard offers large opportunity and growth should not be a problem due to the under-penetrated insurance market, but it's the competition which is the big pain point when it comes to the insurance market. And because of this price competition, the company is suffering underwriting losses. However, these underwriting losses are offset by large float profit. According to the brokerage, lag between the premium collected and claim settlement coupled with higher interest rate makes the business feasible to make profits for the shareholders, even while the company is making underwriting losses. Now they're expecting the premium of ICICI Lombard to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 21% over FY17 to FY20. However, they say that the quality of the profit improving the quality of the profit could be challenging for the company. Going forward, proposed Motor Vehicle Act could boost the underwriting profitability but could impact the float profit of the company. Lastly, they are saying that the current valuations leave no upside when it comes to ICICI Lombard General Insurance. Second, we have is Edelweiss investment on Deepak Nitrite. Now, they have initiated coverage on the stock with a buy rating and a target price of 360. According to the brokerage, the new acetone phenol plant is set to revitalize the business dynamics for Deepak Nitrite from FY20 onwards. Now, Deepak Nitrite has invested close to 1,400 crore rupees in this plant, which is expected to commence production in the first quarter of financial year 2019 with nearly 65% utilization levels. Now, the company is set to reap benefits of capacities as well as the performance products of this plant. Now, the brokerage is expecting spectacular revenue and margin growth with high utilization levels and business expansion when it comes to Deepak Nitrite. Now, they're saying that the revenue of the company would double and the margins would quadruple, while the net profit would grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 38% over FY17 to FY20. Now, though the company has funded its capital expenditure by taking debt and its debt to equity would rise to 2 times, its return on capital employed would still increase to 17% by FY20 versus 7% in FY17. Going forward, the company is expected to generate free cash flow, which will leave ample scope for the company to expand. Lastly, the brokerage says that the valuations are low and they also have a bull case target price of 414 on the stock.
Well, in 2009, a virtual farm gaming startup, FarmVilla, took internet by storm, more specifically Facebook, where millions of people went online to have their own virtual farms. And they were sowing seeds, taking care of the farm, and harvesting virtual fruits and vegetables. But what if I tell you, you can do all that in real time, on a real farm, and can harvest real fruits and vegetables? So we are in one of your farms. Tell us about what is Farmizen and what is this real-time FarmVilla that you're doing?
The idea is very simple. As a consumer, today we are not able to get safe, traceable food, right? So because of that, a lot of us have started growing our own food in balconies and terrace gardens, etc., right? But there are two problems that we usually face. The two problems are, one is of space, right? If you have a small balcony, we can't grow enough food ourselves. The second problem is that of time, right? Because even if I have space, I live in a big house, it will take a lot of effort for me to actually go ahead and take the continuous care that is required to grow my own food, right? So those two problems are what we wanted to necessarily solve. So the way we do it is very simple, right? Consumers have an app, right? And using that app, they book a mini farm. A mini farm is 600 square feet in size, right? And you as a consumer, you use the app to control what you want to plant in each of them, right? For example, this consumer has said, let me put palak here, let me put cabbage there, let me put brinjals there, let me put tomatoes there, and so on and so forth. So when you do all of these things, farmers actually go ahead and plant those on the ground, right? So all of the actions you are taking on the app are actually getting implemented on the field, and that's how it's different from the virtual farm bill. You can come and harvest your own produce yourself whenever the produce is ready, and you can know it through the app as well, right? So you get updates like your tomatoes are now flowering, your brinjals are ready to harvest, etc. But if you can't come and harvest your own produce, we'll anyway home deliver it to you every week.
And what's in it for farmers? I mean, why do they want to partner with you?
See, India's farmers are in a lot of distress, right? When consumers subscribe for this service, they are paying every month, right? So farmers' cash flows are taken care of, right? They don't have to wait for 3 months to get their first money. There is no price risk because some prices will go up, some prices will go down because they are growing so many different crops together, and because consumers are paying a fixed fee every month. Now in this model, because you are growing so many things together, because you are doing it naturally, because you are creating like small micro environments everywhere, so end of the day your farm productivity itself start improving. So who gains the most from that? It's the farmer, his land, right? His soil becomes much better.
And you mentioned today is one of such days where the harvest is going to be delivered.
That's correct.
How about I'm getting onto one of your delivery trucks and visiting one of the families?
Sounds good. Sounds good. That will be exciting. I think we have 32 deliveries planned today, so I am sure you won't want to spend time doing all of those 32 deliveries, but
I can surely try one or two.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The harvest of the day is all loaded into this truck. I'm going to hop into this and get it delivered at the customer's doorstep.
So we prefer this Farmizen, where we can grow 12 type of vegetables, right from dal, vegetable, fruits. We buy organic only. So we wanted to grow more vegetables in our garden, but there is very little space. Best part of Farmizen is whenever we want, we can go, we can harvest ourselves vegetables, and we can educate others, people and children, everybody about organic and how it is good for our health as well as for the environment.
Cars is the main one to look forward to. So that's both electric vehicles and, of course, autonomous vehicles as well. One good example, before the event started on Sunday, NVIDIA announced a partnership with VW and with Uber. And this is a way that the classic CES gets integrated into more modern things. So CES has always been about hardware and chips and things like that. And a lot of those chips from companies like NVIDIA and Intel are going to go into powering AI and other related robotics. And the best example of that, the most real example of that, is going to be self-driving cars.
What other fun things can we look forward to, Alistair? There's always some, few things that comes out of CES, whether it's headphones or something else, that do wild and crazy things.
Yeah, probably the most futuristic stuff is going to be in the AR realm. So a couple of years ago, virtual reality was the really hot topic at CES, and that really hasn't panned out into an everyday type tech product that lots of people use. The hope is that augmented reality is going to be much more friendly to regular users. So there's already been some examples of that, where there's a smart glasses maker called Vuzix, which actually has been around for probably a decade or so, and they've been at they're always at CES. They've been at CES for many years, but actually they for instance had an interesting tie-up with Alexa, Amazon's digital assistant, and that really brings me on to the next thing that people are going to be looking for, which is the digital assistant race between mainly Amazon and Google. They're going to be getting that software into a lot more devices at CES.
Right, here are a few stories that you should consider reading on the website. That's BloombergQuint.com. Two of the biggest names in financial markets are sounding warnings against complacency in the global economic outlook. After strong data and multiple stock market records in the first week of 2018, Citigroup and Pacific Investment Management have told clients over the past few days that there are still reasons to be worried. While there are causes for optimism, they cite geopolitical factors, removal of central bank stimulus, and the risk of an inflation overshoot as possible catalysts for the end to the current economic expansion and market exuberance. Provisions in the first information report filed against Tribune journalist Rashna Khaira for her report exposing vulnerabilities in Aadhaar security failed to establish criminal intent. That's according to Supreme Court advocate Apar Gupta. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of All You Need to Know. Indian Open is up next. Do stay tuned. This is Bloomberg Quint.